This Prezi will be analyzing the film Fiddler on the Roof, directed by Norman Jewison and the figure of Tevye. The more Tevye changes his own moral codes to accommodate his daughter's wishes, the more he loses his attachment to his homeland and his traditions, both physically and symbolically. This Prezi will look at how Tevye's struggle is similar to the struggle of Jewish immigrant families over time, where the parents in older generations must sacrifice their traditions in order to allow their children to be happy in the new world. There are both physical and metaphorical examples of parents trying to find balance in their lives with their traditions and with their children's happiness, which is why we decided to use a scale as our main backdrop. At the beginning of the film, we see a fiddler balancing on a roof in ENG375, and Tevye says that the Jewish community is trying to balance their traditions in a similar way to this fiddler. Throughout the film, Tevye has to let go of his traditions in numerous situations in order for his daughters to marry the men they want to marry and find happiness, and he begins to see the precarious nature of the fiddler's balancing act. At the end of the film, when he has to physically leave ENG375 and lose his connection to his traditions, the fiddler is following from a distance on the ground. The fiddler at the end becomes the metaphorical and physical reminder for Tevye that he had to leave his traditional values behind and cannot regain his connection to them. The images we chose to show are a traditional Jewish family with many children, similar to Tevye's family, and a father pushing a boulder up a hill. A father's responsibility to keep his family safe and happy is never ending, as this film shows. The top image shows the final scene of the movie, where we can see the physical gap of the fiddler, or tradition in a sense, that follows behind Tevye as he keeps moving forward with his family.
The more Tevye changes his own moral code to accommodate his daughter's wishes, the more he loses his attachment to his homeland and his traditions. Tevye's struggle is similar to the struggles of the Jewish immigrant families in the New World. The older generations were required to sacrifice their own traditions to help their children integrate into the New World society. Here I will specifically focus on how Tevye was forced to sacrifice his cultural expectations for the happiness of his second daughter, Hodel. Hodel's situation with Perchik really defines Tevye's position as the arbiter for change in two particular instances. It also marks a shifting sentiment, as the old Jewish traditions are being reinterpreted in a modern context. When Hodel and Perchik dance together the first time, Perchik demonstrates to her how it is possible to change ancient traditions by simply defying the long-standing prohibition of opposite sexes dancing together. At the wedding ceremony of Model and Seidel, Perchik defies tradition again. This time, he crosses the barrier between the men and women to dance with Hodel, which was completely unorthodox. This is obviously not something that would have been readily accepted, and was clearly rejected, until Tevye, a God-fearing man, and again the real arbiter for change in the film, gave the new dancing practice his nod of approval by grabbing his wife and joining the dance. Tevye, as the elder, caused the acceptance of this change, and fatherly love drove him to do something that wasn't normally accepted in the community. Much like the immigrant fathers of the New World were required to change their ways for the love of their children. Accepting the ways of the new culture was for the benefit of the kids, but clearly difficult for immigrant parents who were trying to hold on to their culture despite their physical displacement from their homeland. And these pictures depict the shift between, on the left side, we see the Orthodox Jewish boy of the Old World, and the shift from that to the more modern Jewish family, which shows a young woman being assisted by her parents and relying on them for support. It also shows a scene where Hodel and Perchik are dancing, and the 5 daughters lined up.
The final point is about the interesting crossover of Tevye's struggle and the post-Holocaust consciousness of the audience at the time of filming. Tevye is willing to accept Stetel and Hodel's completely unorthodox marriages, but we see a definitive line drawn with his daughter Chava and Fiedka, a Christian man.
Tevye worries about losing his family identity with this last marriage, but has already lost many aspects of the identity with the first 2 marriages. So there are certain times when where the Jewish identity can be conflicting.
Similar to the post-Holocaust consciousness, we see many stories of members of the Jewish community willing to give up their names and faith in order to save their families from the horrors of war. But we also see certain lines being drawn here, as many people choose to accept this harsh fate because their cultural connection was very strong.
So these images show a large Jewish population still practicing their faith during the Holocaust, when their faith was under attack. But there are some limitations to what a parent is willing and not willing to do. The Star of David becomes the physical mark of the Jewish identity during the Holocaust, but can be mapped onto the film as a sense of the mark of sacrifice, and how Tevye could not fully give up all his traditions for Chava.
And here is a final depiction of our scale between tradition and happiness.
That was pretty good timing.